These women are inconsistent. I'm never betting on the WNBA again. It's one of the most common comments that I see throughout YouTube on WNBA videos. But in this video, lads, I'm going to show you the most consistent players on this upcoming slate of games. We're going to look at the players who have the best matchups, and together, you and I are going to find the best bets to take. If that sounds interesting, let's go. All right, so we're jumping straight into our good friend Outlier. If you guys are interested in checking out Outlier, I do have a 7-day free trial in the video link below. Works extremely well in the WNBA, the NBL, MLB, college sports, and NHL. Go ahead and check it out. It's in the video link below. I'm going to go through this game by game. We're going to find the most consistent players, whether it's overs or whether it's unders. We'll find them, and then we'll see whether it's worth taking a bet or not. First thing we're going to look at is what's happening in the last 10 games to find consistency. Now, the one that's popping up is Kalia Copper. Now, we're looking at under 3.5 3-pointers made for Kalia Copper in the Phoenix Mercury versus Connecticut Sun. Now, she's gone under 3.5 3-pointers in 10 consecutive games. If you look at the season, she's gone under 3.5 in 19 out of 23 games, which is an 83% hit rate. She's also up against the Connecticut Sun, who allow the fewest 3-pointers in the league, so the matchup's going to be tough. And if we look at the head-to-head numbers, she's gone under this in 4 out of the last 5 games against them. Now, minus 160, I honestly don't think it's such a bad play. Let me show you something real quick. So this website's called Ace Odds. It's completely free, and you can use it to look at odds and convert them to different ones from decimals, fractions, American. But that's not what I'm here to show you. I'm here to show you what the implied probability of this means, right? So the odds that we're getting to take the under for Kalia Copper are minus 160, right? Not the greatest straight bet in the world. You're not going to make tons of profit on it. But check this out. At minus 160, that implies that there's a 61.5% chance of this hitting. And if we look at the data here, this has hit in 80% of her games against the Connecticut Sun. This has hit in 83% of the games so far this season. And it's also hit in 100% of the games she's played in her last 10. If you look at 2023, it also hit in 83% of the games there. So I think it's safe to say, based on a year and a half worth of data, that there's an 83% chance she continues to go under again, right? At least. Now, what we do is we change the implied probability to 83%, and it gives us odds at minus 488. So the sports books offering at minus 160, it looks like a great play to take. So Kalia Copper under 3.5 3-pointers made. It's going on my short list of things. I'll share this list with you guys if you're interested in going over it, and I'll also share my final picks. But Kalia Copper, you've made the list, my girl. All right, next up, when we're talking about great hit rates, we've got a fade on Alyssa Thomas here, and we could look at this. Under 9.5 rebounds. So she's gone under 9.5 rebounds in 7 out of her last 10 games. This is minus 136. On the season, she's gone under this in 59% of her games. When we talk about the matchup, the Mercury, they're not a great rebounding team. They actually give up quite a lot, the forwards, guards, and centers. So the matchup here is not a good one if you want to take a look at the under. And if you wanted to give yourself, not yourself, but if you wanted to put through an implied probability, let's say there's a 59% chance of this hitting based on her hit rate so far this season. I'm having a look at right now on Ace Odds, minus 59% probability, minus 144. So the odds at minus 136, just on the hit rate alone, the odds seem pretty fair, but I think this matchup is a tough one. I wouldn't be too confident taking her under in this. Looking in the head-to-head data, she's actually gone over in 3 out of the last 5. Most recently, she got 12 boards against them. So fading Alyssa Thomas rebounds, not necessarily something I want to do right now. The other thing, if we're looking at players that are consistent, we want to look at the head-to-head data in this game too. So which players consistently overperform against this team? So Brianna Jones, she's showing up right here, over 12.5 points. Now, she's played the Mercury twice this season, 16 and 18 points. Not a huge sample size. Looking at the season data, she's covered in 12 out of 22, so a 55% hit rate. The Mercury, if we're talking to bigs, they do allow the second most points to forwards and centers in the competition. So that's a nice look. Next thing we're going to do real quick is head over to Brianna Jones and just take a look at the matchup from Props Madness. Now, Props Madness is calling out that similar players like Brianna Jones, they've done extremely well against the Mercury this season. You can see that here. Aaliyah Boston, Brianna Jones herself twice, Aaliyah Boston twice. And looking at her play style, she does score a lot of points in the post. And the Mercury, not good at defending that area. Even though Brittany Griner is back, she gets to the free throw line. They're not good at defending that. And she gets some putback baskets as well, and they're not so good at defending that. So Brianna Jones, over 12.5 points. It seems like a good look to me. She scores a lot of her points in the paint, almost 85% of her points in the paint. And if we look at the Mercury defense, they're not absolute monsters in the paint either. So Brianna Jones to go over, don't necessarily hate that. I think she's just made her way to the list as well. All right, next up, who we got? We've got a fade on DeWanna Bonner. So we can either look at points plus rebounds or just her rebounds. I think I'm just going to look at rebounds just to make sure whatever props we do land on, everybody can get a taste. Now, her line at 6.5, it is at minus 166. She's hit the under in 4 consecutive games against the Mercury, so that's nice. But if we look at the form of the season, it's a 50% hit rate. And even if you go look at last season, it was a 53% hit rate. So, and we know this Mercury team, not the greatest rebounding team either. So don't necessarily want to fade Bonner. Didn't want to fade Alyssa Thomas either. So we'll have to pass on fading them. Kalia Copper, 99% sure I'm going to take that bet. The next one we can look at is Dejanay Carrington. I do like her. I like the way she plays. I might like other things about her too. But the hit rate on this, let's talk through it. In the head-to-head matchups, 3 out of the last 4 games against the Mercury, she's gone under 12.5 points. The last time they played, she did score 16. So that under doesn't, it scares me a little bit. Looking at the season data, she's only hit the under in 45% of games, 10 out of 22. The matchup, also not great. The Mercury do allow a lot of points. So for anything, I'd be leaning to the over, despite her poor head-to-head form. But we're looking for consistency through great matchups, and neither of those are ticking the boxes for me. Another one we can look at here is Alyssa Thomas, and this is for her assist prop. She's hit the over in 3 out of 5, which is not crazy. It's not mind-blowing, but she's up against a Mercury team that does allow the 3rd most assists in the league. 3 out of 5. If we look at the season, she's covered this at only 10 out of 22. But if we look at more recently, her last 5 games, she has cashed this in 4 out of the 5, where she does average 9 assists. The over is at minus 128. So yeah, plenty over here for Alyssa Thomas, but I don't love it as much as the other picks. So I'm not looking to force anything out. But there's nothing that's showing up on outlier here in terms of consistency. So let's jump to the next game, shall we? So we've got the Aces versus the Mystics. Let's get this consistency thing rolling. So the first one is Stephanie Dolson, over 10 first half points, rebounds, and assists. It's only available in a limited number of books, so it's not something that I want to look at. The next one is for Jackie Young, under 5.5 rebounds. It is at minus 158, but let's talk about it. In her last 10 games, she's hit the under in 80% of those games, averaging 4.6 rebounds. She's up against a Mystics team that sits middle of the pack in terms of rebounds allowed, but they also allow the 4th most rebounds to guards. So that matchup makes me a little bit worried. If you look at the head-to-head data, she's played the Mystics 5 times. She's probably played them more, but in her last 5 games against the Mystics, she's actually gone under 5.5 rebounds in 4 of those games for an 80% hit rate. And then if we look at the season data, she's actually hit the under in 62% of games. Now, minus 158, I'm not sure if I'd be willing to take that. Minus 158, I'm on Ace Odds right now. That implies a 61.2% probability. I was sharing the wrong screen the whole time, my bad. Got a 61.8% probability. On the season, she's actually hitting this number at 62%. So those things kind of balance it based on a hit rate this year. The odds are probably fair. Based on the matchup, though, it's not a bet that I want to take because this Mystics team does give up some rebounds to guards. So I'll probably have to pass on Jackie Young's under. What else we can find? The next one is for Ariel Atkins, under 3.5 rebounds. Now, she's hit under 3.5 rebounds in 8 out of her last 10 games. That's an 80% hit rate. She's up against the Aces team that does allow the 3rd most rebounds in the league. They allow the 5th most rebounds to guards, but where they give it the most is to forwards and centers. But yeah, the Aces give up quite a few boards, but we're not done yet. Check out this head-to-head form. She's played them 4 times in the last 2 years, and she's hit under 3.5 rebounds in all 4 games. And then looking at the season data, a 61% hit rate, going under in 14 of 23 games. So the only concern is probably the matchup. Right? If I look at a 61% probability, you should be looking at odds at -156. And for Ariel Atkins to take her under, we're looking at -114. So there's probably a slight edge here. My only concern for this play is the matchup and how the Aces have been giving up some rebounds this season. But at the same time, Ariel Atkins has played the Aces twice already this season, and she did go under in both of those games. So the Aces have been better as of late as well. So Ariel Atkins rebounds, unders, that's going to make my list of things to bet on. All right, what else can we find here? Jackie Young again, and it's her assist prop now at 5.5. So she's hit the under in 7 out of her last 10 games, averaging 4.9 assists. The Mystics, middle of the pack in terms of assists allowed and assists allowed to guards. So the matchup's not good and it's not bad. And if you look at the head-to-head data against the Mystics, she's gone under in 4 out of her last 5. Keep in mind, though, the last time she played them, which was only about a week ago, she did have 10 assists in that game. So absolutely blitzed them. So that does worry me a little bit. On the season, there's a 52% hit rate for this prop for Jackie Young. If we look at games with Chelsea Gray this season, Jackie Young has actually hit the under in 7 out of her last 10. So give us a little bit of the edge. I don't hate this prop. I don't mind it. But I don't love it enough for it to make my list. So we're not trying to force some bets here. We're just going to find some consistency. So I'm not willing to dance with that. Her getting the 10 assists most recently against them is probably what's scaring me off the most. The next one, we could look at taking a fade on Julie Van Loo. Under 4.5 assists, -130. She's hit the under in 7 out of her last 10 games, averaging 4.4 assists. In head-to-head matchups, twice this season, she had 8 assists in the first game, 2 assists in the most recent game. In terms of the Aces, middle of the pack in terms of assists allowed. And on the season, she's covered this line at a 52% hit rate. So, yeah, the under, but again, it's not screaming out to me like we should take this. So there are other ones out here, but the odds are trash, like Asia Wilson to get over 1.5 assists. It's only available in a limited number of books, so I don't want to play with that. Here's one I might be willing to dance with, actually. Ariel Atkins, under her points plus assists, under 19.5. She's gone under in 7 out of her last 10. The matchup, it's not too bad. In head-to-head matchups, 4 consecutive games against the Aces, where she's gone under her points plus assists. The 2 games this season, she had 18 in game 1, then 19 in game 2. Line set at 19.5 though, so it is pretty tight. 61% hit rate on the season, and odds at -119. At -119, it implies a 54.3% probability, whereas in actual fact on the season, she's hit this at 61%. So yeah, probably lean as well, but I think I'm feeling more to just take maybe the under and just her rebounds, or maybe her whole PRA you could look at the under on, because that all makes sense. I'm checking to see if there's anything else that stands out to me here, and there's not many players available, so no, there isn't. But let's look at the most consistent props in terms of head-to-head. We've gone through Ariel Atkins already, her points plus assists, her PRA showing up, as well as her rebounds. So I think I had to take Ariel Atkins and probably be her boards or her PRA. That's what I'd be thinking. The boards do a slightly better hit rate, and the odds a lot better as well. So probably thinking that we have a bigger edge, just taking the under in her rebounds. It is going to be a sweaty bet. 3.5 rebounds ain't nothing but a G thing. Sorry, I'm going to start rapping. Next up, have a look at a fade on Stephanie Dolson. So it's her points plus rebounds, 17.5. So in head-to-head matchups against the Aces, she's hit the under in 7 out of 8. The problem is she's only played them once this season. In that game, she scored 23 points and had 7 boards. So I'm not willing to fade her straight up. In past years, she's barely got any minutes at all. So fading Stephanie Dolson based off these numbers, not a good way. So we're going to skip over her. The next one, if you're feeling brave, is an under on Asia Wilson. So 40.5 is the line. She's hit the under in 4 out of her last 5 games against Washington, including both games this season where she only had 25 and 31 PRA. In terms of matchups, she's got a tough matchup for rebounds. The points and assist matchup, it's not too bad, but it's not an easy one either, so I don't mind that. Minus 110 Onsi, so I don't mind that at all. Looking at the season, she's hit the under in 55% of games. More recently, she has been a bit of a beast. 52 against the Atlanta Dream, 46 against the Seattle Storm. So she has had a lot of big games. There could be blowout on the cards here, because if you look at the 2 games this season, an 11-point win for the Aces and a 21-point win for the Aces. In those games, 32 and 26 minutes. So if there is a blowout and she plays 26 minutes, we do have a better chance. In these games where she has been popping, 37 minutes here against the Dream, 35 minutes against the Storm. She went under when she played 31 minutes. So, and then this game where they lost against the Spark, she played 41 minutes, scored 35 points, had 12 rebounds, and even got 3 assists. So I think this is really tied to whether we think this game's going to be close or not. If the Aces can get the blowout win on the road, A'ja Wilson probably does not cover this. If we take a look at this, A'ja Wilson has failed to exceed 40.5 PRA in 15 out of her last 19 games versus top 5 defenses for assists allowed. And a lot of these, well, actually, at least half of these games are from this season where she's hit the under in these matchups. So, yeah, I think the under here for A'ja Wilson, especially at minus 110, it's a pretty good look. So we've got a 55% hit rate on this season. At 55%, at a probability of 55%, you should be looking at odds at minus 122. If we can, in fact, get this at minus 110, I honestly don't think it's such a bad play. So it's a risky one because she's a beast, MVP this season, but I don't mind that. All right, let's check to see if there's any others that have a good hit rate against this opposition. And nothing else was really tickling my fancy. So let's jump into the next game. We have the Fever versus the Lynx. So firstly, hit rate over the last 10. This one screaming out to me, it's Aaliyah Boston, over 24.5 points plus rebounds. Now, I like this play already because I know the Minnesota Lynx don't rebound well, but they have been pretty good at limiting points. But check it out. She's covered this line in 8 out of the last 10 games, averaging 25.9 points plus rebounds. So we like that. In head-to-head matchup, she has hit in 3 out of her last 4 games against the Lynx, yet to vote this season. So this is last season's data. But if we look at the season in 2024, she's covered in only 10 out of 24 games. But you can see a notable shift halfway through the season so far. We're really looking at the last 12 games where the hit rate has been absurd. So what are we looking at here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 10 out of her last 12 games, Aaliyah Boston's gone over 24.5 points. The Lynx do not give up so many points, but they do allow a lot of rebounds. So out of curiosity, what's her rebound prop look like? It's at 9.5. It's a bit high for me. So, and you can see the hit rate is definitely not as good, but she has been beasting it. So this 24.5, I don't mind it. Looking at it on the road, she's covered this in 4 straight road games, so I do like that as well. So Aaliyah Boston, over 24.5. If I can get this close to minus 110, I'm going to be a happy chappy. All right, next up, we've got Caitlin Clark, her rebounds plus assists. And take a look at that. So the line's at 15.5. She's covered in 8 out of her last 10 games. We know this Minnesota team gives up a lot of rebounds. They give up the 2nd most rebounds to guards. Actually, here's an interesting thing on the rebound data. The Lynx actually allow the 4th fewest rebounds to centers. So it makes me probably hesitate a bit on the Aaliyah Boston look. But for guards, they give up the 2nd most rebounds. So that's a good play, a good look for Caitlin Clark. In terms of assists allowed, they do allow the fewest assists in the league. But Caitlin Clark's covered this in 8 out of her last 10. She hasn't versed this team before. She's actually covered in 5 straight games. So she's been an absolute beast, averaging 20 rebounds and assists over her last 5. This Lynx team, excellent defensively. Collier's a game-time decision on whether she's going to be back or not. Might be a little bit rusty. She's questionable now, so from doubtful down to questionable. So she might play. But Caitlin Clark's been absolutely beasting as of late. I just can't not take this bet, to tell you the truth. Minus 119. And this really comes down to her recent form. You can see it on this graph. The first half of the season definitely wasn't going too far with it. And then if you look at her last 10 games, 8 out of her last 10, which is just remarkable. I want to look at the games where she didn't go over. It was against the Dream. The Fever blew them out. And against Storm, they got blown out. for this particular game against the Lynx. There's probably a chance it could be probably not a blowout, more so a shutout. That's probably the risk because the Lynx are so good defensively. But the Fever have been better as of late, and a lot of that has to do with Caitlin Clark. One option, just looking at her assists and rebounds, that line for her assists is at 9.5. She has gone in double-digit assists in 5 straight games. She has versed the Aces and the Liberty, who have been pretty good defensively this season, or actually more recently, but she had cooking with them. But if you want to look at her, just her rebound prop perhaps, because that's when we know the matchup is easiest. 6.5 hasn't necessarily been covering that with ease, but that's where the better matchup is. So I think the rebounds plus assists is the better look here for Caitlin Clark. So put that down on my list of leans. The question for that particular play is, can I get that prop on the book? Because some limited props for sure. I just double checked and I can get Caitlin Clark. So beautiful. Probably end up running with that. What else are we looking at in terms of consistency? Could also look at Caitlin Clark double-double, but then you're really just playing her to get 10 plus assists. The rest consistent as I would like them to be. There's a lot of 7 out of 10s in this. Let's look at the head-to-head filter. So Caleb McBride, under 3.5 assists, has a 100% hit rate against the Fever, but they haven't played yet this season. So you're looking at old data and the fact that the Fever do actually allow a lot of assists. Bridget Carlton could look at fading her 3-point line. It is at minus 155, though. Does have a strong hit rate. Collier is back. Oh, potentially. So given that they're potentially back, not overly keen to take that bet, to be honest. And then the others have about a 75% hit rate. So it's not screaming out to me. I think Aaliyah Boston, probably the best player I could find in this, now that I think about it. But yeah, in terms of consistency and matchup, those are the ones I'd be thinking about. So let's head over to the Dream versus the Storm. Now looking at these hit rates, we can see that fading Jewel Lloyd rebounds and assists is showing up the highest hit rate. 8 out of her last 10 games, she's hit the under. She's averaging 7.2 rebounds and assists in her last 10 games. If we look at the Atlanta Dream and the matchup against guards, they actually don't allow too many rebounds, which is nice. The third few rebounds in the league. And in terms of assists, they do allow the 4th most assists. So I'd be a little bit hesitant around the assist numbers for Jewel Lloyd, but she's pretty steady with it. She typically gets between 3 and 5 assists anyway. The rebounds is what's going to blow this line out. So under 8.5 is at minus 146. 80% hit rate in the last 10. She's got a 57% hit rate so far this season. But if you look at her recent form, a lot of those have been unders. And then if you look at the head-to-head numbers, only 2 games against the Dream, both of them last season, 50% hit rate. So I'm not putting too much stock into that. But minus 146 is what's irking me right now. That implies my probability. Yeah, it's almost a 60% probability those odds are telling us. Now, there's a 57% hit rate on the season, which is not too far off 60%. But over her last 20 games, we have a 60% hit rate. And then over her last 10, we have an 80% hit rate. The games where she went over against the Sun, 5 assists, 5 rebounds. And then against the Dallas Wings, 5 assists and 5 rebounds. You can see it if we just look at her assists in this graph. The ceiling here looks like it's 5 assists. What's going to take her over is her rebounds. So if we look at her rebound prop, that's at 4.5. It's plus money for her to go over, which she does. It's only got a 48% hit rate this season. She has rebounded well against this team in the past, but I'm not too concerned with data from previous seasons. So I think the under in her rebounds and assists, I think it's a good look. The only concern, these odds are crap. So if you're playing it on Prize Picks or anything like that, it could be worth looking at the under there if you can get some pretty good odds for it. In terms of straight betting, I'm not overly excited by it. Rebounds and assists, the under 8.5. Yeah, I'm getting minus 133 for it, though. So it's actually a lot better than the minus 146, which is up here right now. But yeah, minus 1, if I just run those numbers, 57%. No, I do not like it. So this is probably a good play for all you users. Rebet, chalkboard, Prize Picks. You know what I'm talking about. Let's take a look at this. Skylar Diggins, under 1.53 pointers. Oh, it's minus 210 though. So those aren't great odds. I have to pass on that. I'm not too excited by that at all. Then we have Skylar Diggins over 7.5 assists. She's been cashing this in quite well recently. On the season, she hasn't been. So 7 out of her last 10, averaging 7.8 assists. On the season, she only has a 39% hit rate, 9 out of 23 games. The outlier stat is that she has covered this in 4 out of her last 5 games at home. So that's pretty nice. If we just look at her home games this season, we'll see that her hit rate at home is at 54% and odds are at plus 102, which is nice. Plus 102. That gives us a 49.5% probability. Based on the limited data at home, she's got a 54% hit rate. So the odds are indicating a 49% probability. This Atlanta Dream team, middle of the pack in terms of assists allowed, but they do allow the 4th most assists to guards in the league. No head-to-head data. She hasn't played them in quite some time. So, yeah, this is what I'd lean to the over for, and at plus money odds, might be something I can get around. So, Skylar Diggins, we can take a look at you. And who else is popping up on the radar in terms of consistency? Nothing major. Let's look at the head-to-head data to see what happens when these teams clash. So we've got the Jewel Lloyd under 4.5 assists, but that's at minus 180, so those odds aren't great. We've got Nyeka over her PRA, but her reform is terrible. But let's have a look at it anyway. Let's take a look. So she's played 4 games against the Dream. She's covered in all 4, but none of those are this season. So we're looking at data from previous years, which I'm not going to put too much stock into. What else do we have here? Jewel Lloyd under her 3-pointers made prop. So we can take a look at that. So, yeah, she's hit the under. Both of these games were last season. In her last 10, she's hit the under in 6 out of 10 games, so it's not bad. But this Dream team's not good at defending the 3-point line. They do allow the 4th most 3-pointers to guards in the league. So, yeah, I'm not doing that. And look, nothing else is really popping up on the screen that I'm too familiar with. So I've had a quick look over all the games on this upcoming slate. I've got quite a few leans, and knowing me, I'll probably bet on most of them. So I'll put all leans in the comment section below. Feel free to tell if you want to. Do your own research. That's what I honestly encourage you to do. Make your own bets. Don't tell somebody else's and then get in the comment section the day after saying your picks cost me money, because that shit is lame and it's so old. Do your own research. Make your own picks. Hopefully my research has helped you make some better decisions in your life when it comes to sports betting. But if you did like the video, smash the like button. Give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm on the road to 8,500 subscribers, and hopefully we can get it this week because we are close. And if you want to throw support my way, or if you're looking for new daily fantasy apps, you can check those out in the video link below. Sign up to Rebet, Dabble Fantasy, or Chalkboard using the code DAFT, or you can click on one of those links. You'll get a 100% deposit match, and Dabble Fantasy will just throw your money. The minute you sign up with them and make your first deposit, they'll just give you a free $10. And you can use that to chase the dragon, chase your losses, chase a Hail Mary, chase whatever you like. But I'll catch you guys in the next one. Appreciate you watching. Peace.